What's up? Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. Robert Murray is back from the GM meetings. I never left, and it's our job now to talk you through everything Robert learned during his time on the ground in San Antonio. Plenty of headlines. Juan Soto, the Cardinals. Dana Brown made some strong statements. Couple of people connecting Garrett Crochet to a very interesting team. I'm going to get Robert's thoughts on plenty of things, plus your questions. My name is also Adam Weinrib. Did not say that, and now I will. First of all, Robert Murray, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. It's good to be back in Scottsdale. It feels good. It was a very active, busy, a lot of stuff going on in San Antonio. Not a lot of movement at all, I should say, but just a lot of people in baseball gathered in one place. I talked to a ton of people, a ton of agents, a ton of executives, a ton of just, who. I saw Cole Hamels in the lobby a bunch, so that was cool seeing him. But I learned an absolute ton. I fully plan on unloading the notebook here on the Baseball Insiders. I appreciate all of you who joined. Adam, I appreciate you. I know your voice is not in the best shape today, you said. So you're doing lovely. I'm proud of you. But good to be here. How you doing?
It's hard to tell, though, right? Everybody in the comments is like, your voice sounds amazing. And I'm like, oh, please, come on. No, let's be modest. Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit, but it's good that I'm struggling today because this is a day when you want to hear from Robert Murray more than me for sure. He's got plenty. We're going to open up the notebook. We're going to get to your questions. Got some topics laid out here. A lot of questions in the All-Star channel and the Discord. So got to get to those first, as many as we can. Once we open it up for questions, we'll respond to a few back in that Discord with the rest of the All-Stars. But please join us there if you want to talk between shows. You can join the All-Star tier or the Rumor Mill tier. Additionally, the Moonshot. Subscribe to our weekly baseball email newsletter where the fan-sided MLB team, including Robert Murray, my co-host, break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info. So why aren't you subscribed yet? And if you are, thank you for doing that. Robert, before we get into all of a couple of very specific categories and some questions from the viewers, you spent some quality time on MLB Network at the GM meetings. We saw you around. Now is the time to drop some nuggets, open up your personal notebook before we move on to the specifics, anything that you want to touch on.
Yeah, I'll dive into a few different things. I've seen some buzz about Nathan Eovaldi going around on Twitter about the Braves, about the Rangers. I can tell you, like, the Braves' interest, that's real. The Rangers have made it clear that Eovaldi is their priority this winter. They want to retain him, and they have seen firsthand the impact that he can have in the rotation, especially in the late innings, or especially deep in the postseason where he's able to pitch deep into ball games. And but that being said, everything I heard there is that it's not going to be a quick resolution by any means. And I think that can be said for a lot of these different free agents. The expectation that I have leaving the GM meetings is that this is going to be a slow winter. So I would recommend diving in. I would recommend just being patient because it's going to require some patience here because this could end up being a pretty slow winter. One player who I do know is drawing interest already is Willy Adames. I've seen some different stuff on Twitter about him. I think we'll be diving into that at some point. At least I think so. If not, then wait, do we have that on? I don't think we have that on the rundown, do we?
Yeah, let's do Adames now because I know that we in the past have talked about, okay, Dodgers a perfect fit, but like the comment section is saying all of a sudden position switch, the Mets are involved. What are you hearing there?
Yeah, like he is open to like a different position for sure. That is real. I think that was reported by Will Salmon. So good job by Will. I think the Dodgers make sense. I think the Mets make sense. I think the Red Sox make sense. I think a return to the Brewers makes sense. But the expectation that I have leaving the GM meetings is that an Adames reunion in Milwaukee is pretty unlikely. I was told in an exact quote of uphill battle. So I would not expect Adames to return to Milwaukee unless something just drastically changes. I have seen the reports about that early Mets offer. I don't tend to believe that. It seems too early in the offseason to make an offer quite like that, especially when the Mets are going to be gunning for a guy like Juan Soto. So I don't believe that big offer report about Adames and the Mets. But Adames will get a pretty significant deal in free agency. I feel very confident in that. He will be very, very rich by the end of it, but it's just too early for any sort of resolution there. yeah, I think that's kind of where that stands. There was another thing that I wanted to. Oh yeah, the last thing I wanted to touch on. We're going to be talking plenty of Red Sox on this show today. Is I did leave the GM meetings talking to like people outside the organization who have interacted with the Red Sox, and they are also of the belief that they're going to be spending in free agency this year pretty much. So it's going to be different than in years past, which is good news for the Red Sox fans. But that's at least the signals that are coming out of Boston. We'll see if that ultimately comes to fruition. But I'm more optimistic about the Red Sox spending this offseason than I have been in recent years.
Might as well stay on that topic too, because Garrett Crochet not dealt at last year's deadline. I think a lot of us expected, hey, maybe the Dodgers will hop in, but then there was that skittishness about pitching in the postseason and pitching without an extension, and it all got a little bit more complicated. So Chris Getz held on to that chip. Now he might move this offseason. I think the expectation is he probably will, and the White Sox are looking for, from what I've heard, position players, which just screams Boston Red Sox. I mean, if you think about teams that are looking at pitching prospects, then you should call the Pirates. But if you're looking at position player prospects, you should probably call the Red Sox, who will determine who they like most out of Meyer and Teal and Christian Campbell and Braden Montgomery and Roman Anthony, and they'll put together a package for you for an ace. Now's the time for a team like the Red Sox to trade some of these redundant, but in a nice way, really elite prospects for upgrades to the big league roster. So Crochet feels like a natural fit. I'll put that out there and just sort of ask what you're hearing to that end.
I totally agree with you. I think Garrett Crochet is a great fit for the Red Sox. And obviously, Craig Breslow has an extensive history in working with pitchers. Obviously, he was one. And you think that acquiring Crochet, who is going to be one of, if not the best pitchers available on the trade market, getting him would be a huge coup for the Red Sox in that front office and really addressing that rotation, which really needs reinforcements there. But the Red Sox are not going to be alone in this. And I was talking to Getz along with Ken Rosenthal at the GM meetings, and he made it clear that there's other teams, like new teams involved in the sweepstakes this offseason already that there were at the deadline. And I think that's part of the reason why they ended up holding on to Crochet at the deadline, is because they anticipated this. And they had some intriguing offers at the end, at the deadline. That's something I had heard at the time, and I had heard again at the GM meetings, is there was some different packages that were presented to the White Sox that really intrigued them. But they wanted to wait it out because he had control and he was cheap. And I think they should really benefit from that. And you also got to think, too, maybe it's not immediately part of the trade, but you would think that Crochet would be open to an extension with whatever team he's traded to. So I think that's one of the other elements to watch here. And that would also make him more valuable as well in a trade. So I think there's a lot of smoke pointing toward a Crochet trade. I expect the Red Sox to be involved. I expect them to be involved in a lot of different pitchers this offseason. That's the real buzz that I heard at the GM meetings. And it's refreshing because I've bashed the Red Sox plenty on this podcast before and their lack of spending, but I think this offseason is shaping up to be different.
Well, look, since 2004, since the Red Sox won that World Series, this is the longest World Series drought that the Boston Red Sox have had as a franchise. They've never made it past 6 years without another title before, and we've now 18-24. That's 6. It'll be 7 next October. Seriously, that is the literal longest they've gone without winning a series. Now is the time. It's one of baseball's preeminent franchises. They got to make moves. And if you want to make a move, there's an easy way this offseason. Juan Soto is available. And obviously, very little needle moving, I assume, at the GM meetings. But Scott Boras is out there making puns. Everybody knows he is the crown jewel. And we couldn't help but notice that Mookie Betts moved back to the infield. For whatever reason. So clarity on the Soto market. I mean, not really expecting that, but that did not go unnoticed.
No, that definitely did not go unnoticed. And I think maybe that's part of the design, is because I think that's going to end up prolonging his career. That was something that I had heard prior to last year, is that the Dodgers really wanted to have Betts in the infield. So I think that's just kind of getting back to what the original plan was. But you also got to think, moving Mookie Betts into the infield, that opens up a natural spot for Juan Soto in the outfield. So maybe I'm counting that as probably unlikely to happen, just for the various reasons we mentioned before. Is the Dodgers are going to I bet you they're going to be hesitant to really give Soto like non-deferred money in this. I think if they end up giving him a straight up contract of whatever, I had one GM predict it's going to be like, or predict that it ends up being like 14 or 13 years for about 40 to 41 million a year, which I think if that's over 14 years, that puts it at like 571, which that is a lot. I mean, that's a good amount of money, but if they ended up giving him all that without any deferred money, I think that could end up upsetting some players in the clubhouse of like Mookie Betts or Shohei Ohtani or any of these players who have deferred money in their contracts, because it's a dynamic that I think the Dodgers are going to have to be mindful of. But there are plenty of teams that are also involved in this. We've already seen the Mets, the Yankees, obviously the Dodgers we're mentioning now, but the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Giants, and even John Heyman dropping the Rays. I did not expect that. Their interest in Freddie Freeman when he was a free agent was sincere. So they do like dabbling at least with some of these bigger free agents. Can't imagine that is the most likely scenario. I got to imagine of all the teams listed, they're probably the most unlikely. I still am not discounting the Philadelphia Phillies. I mentioned that on MLB Network. I think that fit just makes so much sense, and the Phillies love stars. So we'll see. But there is no resolution at all like close with Soto. It's going to be dragging on for a while. Part of me wonders if Boris is going to want to get that done at the winter meetings so he can have as much spotlight as possible. But yeah, it's going to be a long winter. I think Soto's going to end up holding up the market here.
Oops. Well, anyway, yeah, fitting you were on MLB Network this week, because now I've got my voice sounding like Am Singer today for whatever reason. The Astros, Alex Bregman, Dana Brown. We'll move on to Bregman and company, because Dana Brown, there was a time when I think we all thought, okay, Bregman is making himself too expensive for the Astros. They're going to have to move on. They're going to have to prioritize Kyle Tucker, Framber, Valdez, or some flexibility down the line. But all of a sudden, the last week or so, it sort of felt like, okay, now they're moving the pieces around to find room for Bregman. And Brown made some strong statements about the team's intention to keep him. And now Ryan Presley, I don't know if you can try to get him to waive his no trade clause. Who knows where that lands? But it now feels like Kyle Tucker, Presley, Framber, their future's a little more unsecured as the Astros look to find that financial wiggle room for Bregman. Are you getting sort of the same impression?
Yeah, there's a lot to dissect here. And when I was talking to Dana Brown, it was we asked him about Bregman, and he made it clear that he's their priority, that they've had productive conversations with Scott Boras already about Bregman, and that he really liked their chances of retaining Bregman. And I did some digging, and there was nothing close as of my time at the GM meetings. I can't imagine Boras and Bregman are going to be in a hurry to get off of free agency, especially as the market's really kind of just starting to develop. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Bregman ended up returning to Houston, but I think it's just far too early to really have a good look at it. But as far as the rest of the Astros go, we got to see Chandler Rome report that they've had internal conversations about possibly trading Ryan Presley. They've obviously have some high-priced relievers there in Houston, and he's obviously had an extensive career there in Houston. So we'll see ultimately what ends up happening there. But as far as Kyle Tucker goes, I do not anticipate extension talks happening this winter, barring something changing there. I expect that to maybe be a conversation that's had in spring training or even during the season. But as far as right now, I don't think a Tucker extension is on really high up on their priority list. I think they're just focused on Bregman for now and just going from there.
Nice. Got some comments asking about Dodgers rumors, so good time to transition into Teoscar Hernández, who was mentioned, I think, in the wake of the Dodgers championship parade. It's easy to think, okay, all these guys are coming back. Like Jack Flaherty said, I never want to leave. Teoscar's crying at the mic. You're thinking about, okay, the Dodgers obviously have all the money in the world. They're just going to run it back. But all of a sudden, we're reconsidering. The Red Sox tried for Teoscar last year, didn't secure him. He didn't believe in their immediate vision or whatnot, but now they're a year closer. Morosi added the Orioles to that. Are the Dodgers heavily involved on Teoscar, and is there validity to the report about these AL East teams looking at him as well?
Yeah, there's validity to all the above. Is that the Red Sox, they like Teoscar Hernandez. They were on him last year, but they ended obviously didn't get the deal done because he wanted to be in LA. The Orioles, I have not confirmed that report, but I mean it tracks for sure because they do need another slugger in that lineup, especially a proven veteran guy, and I think he'd be really good in that clubhouse. From the moment this offseason started to now, which I mean, it's not really that much time. But but still is I fully anticipate. Okay, let me slow down for a second here. I think the Dodgers, as of this point, are the favorite to retain Teoscar Hernandez. It is clear that they value him. It is clear that Hernandez values being in LA. He made it very clear at the parade that he 1000% wants to return to LA, and they did not talk about an extension during the season. I think both sides were in agreement to table any potential extension talks until the offseason. But there is mutual interest in a reunion there. It's going to take some time for sure. But I think the Dodgers are the team to beat for Teoscar Hernandez right now. We'll see if another team can outbid them. But I think if the money's close, then I think a reunion in LA makes the most sense for Hernandez. I think that'd be the way he goes, but still very much developing right now.
While we're on the Dodgers too, good time to weave in some of these Discord questions. A similar question from both Beyond the Halo and Punk Rock Poppy, talking about similar players, but obviously one is a Dodgers fan and one is an Angels fan, asking about, so Dodgers side, which of the three available lefties, Snell, Fried, and Crochet, do the Dodgers prefer? It's a good question. Beyond the Halo also asking about the top pitcher free agents like Snell, and add Corbin Burns to that mix. So basically, Dodgers and Angels, do you foresee either shopping at the top of the market in terms of starting pitching? And if so, can you connect any dots here?
I would think that the Dodgers would be more likely to end up pursuing one of the high-end arms as opposed to the Angels. And I mean, with the Angels, you can never really have a good grasp at what they're trying to do, just because it can kind of change by the day. But the Angels, in my conversations at the GM meetings, they have made it clear that they are going to be searching for anything and everything. And that could be starting pitching, relieving, or you can look at infield, outfield. I mean, they already got Jorge Soler. I mean, he's looking more like a DH. I'm curious what that means for Trout and exactly how they're going to end up deploying those guys for the DH there. But my understanding and talking to Perry was that they're looking for another power bat. And if they're able to do that, then I think they'll do that. But they also need to get another starting pitcher. They will get another starting pitcher. Kyle Hendricks will not be the only move for the rotation, because if that was the case, that'd be a pretty poor plan. But I expect Perry to be active in search for a starting pitcher. I just don't expect it to really be a high-end arm. I wouldn't really get your expectations up in LA, or for Anaheim, I should say. Been wrong before. That could be subject to change, but that's at least my read as of right now. As far as the Dodgers go, I remember last year when Blake Snell was remaining on the market, they did check in there and they had some conversations. So I think you can maybe see if it's possible they can end up doing that again. I think Max Fried makes a whole lot of sense there, considering that he's from that area. He grew up there. Obviously has ties to Jack Flaherty and some of these other guys. I mean, Flaherty's not under contract, but still, I mean, he can talk to Flaherty about his experience there in LA. But I think of those two teams, the Dodgers are the most likely one to spend big for a rotation piece.
Fried also, I believe, spotted partying with some of the Dodgers after the World Series. So that's.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's on some minds, I would say. So good shout there.
Very good shout.
And Kyle Hendricks, look, he may have to redefine eating innings this year. They might ask him to do 9 innings every single day out there in Anaheim, which is tough. It's a large amount of innings to eat, but if anyone can do it, it's Kyle Hendricks. This is a question from Scott, and I think this is going to be the Yankees' search for pretty much everything is going to be all. It's going to be all encompassing this offseason. But there have been a lot of reports lately about their interest in the bullpen market. So they're losing Clay Holmes, Tommy Kahnle, Tim Hill in all likelihood. Saw them connected to Carlos Estevez today. I mean, it feels like the Yankees are going to throw some money around. Jeff Hoffman got mentioned in this question. He might be a starter moving forward. But either way, Yankees bullpen feels like a solid fit. Are you hearing anything about their preferences there? And are they really able to do anything while they're waiting for Juan Soto?
I think they are able to do certain things while waiting for Juan Soto. I think they can't be big things, but I think one of their biggest priorities is addressing that bullpen. And from what I gather, they're casting a pretty wide net looking for bullpen pieces. It's not just Estevez. There's a lot of other guys that they're kicking the tires on. And I mean, Estevez, I mean, he is one based on the reports. I have not confirmed it, but yeah, they're casting a wide net here. They're able to do stuff while waiting for Soto, but yeah, it's just their offseason to me is just Juan Soto or bust. I mean, yeah. And John, I did talk to Perry. Talked to him a few times actually.
Gotta get Perry on the horn again. Love that guy. Another good question from the All-Star channel. And I think, look, niche nerdy question, but that's what we do here, right? Rich and Scott teamed up to talk about these sort of older first basemen, because we've got Anthony Rizzo now, decline option in New York. Paul Goldschmidt, we all agree, future not St. Louis. Josh Bell, Carlos Santana in his late 30s, picking up Gold Gloves all of a sudden. Like, there are bargains to be had, but I think we all thought Brandon Belt would have a bigger market than he did, and he essentially washed out of baseball. So what are we thinking in terms of these aging first base free agents, like mid-30s? Is there a market here, or are we going to be waiting? Are these guys going to be waiting a really long time to find a partner for 2025?
I think of those guys, Josh Bell is probably going to have the hardest time to I think he's going to end up having to wait the longest of all those older first basemen. I think a guy like Carlos
32,
Santana,
man. Like, yeah,
is he 32?
32.
Why did I think he was like in his upper 30s?
I don't know.
Crazy.
I get it though.
Yeah, but as far as Josh Bell, I think he's gonna have to wait quite a while. But I also think a guy like Carlos Santana, I've talked to people who have been around him in previous stops, and they loved the leadership that he ended up bringing in a clubhouse. And he's obviously still a productive player. I did see John Morosi quote his agent, I believe, in saying that Santana wants to play 3 to 4 more years, which that kind of caught me off guard. But Santana, to me, will have an easier time finding a job. He'll get a more lucrative deal than Bell, in my opinion. And I think he is going to end up being an under the radar guy. I wouldn't rule out a return to Pittsburgh. I do know how much Pittsburgh loves him, but with how little the Pirates usually spend, they could even be outbid for a guy like that. So we'll see. But I think Santana will have a fairly good market, but it'll just end up it'll be a little bit for him.
For some reason, I mean, again, Brandon Belt never put up a negative WAR season, sturdy ball player, finished his career with a 135 OPS plus in Toronto in 2023, and then just no offers that materialized, or at least nothing that ended up being a contract agreed to by both sides last year. So very odd. Hopefully none of these players have such a tough time finding work. Gonna toss it into the comment section just a little bit, a couple teams we haven't touched on yet. Andrew and the Padres, obviously. Any buzz that you're hearing on these San Diego Padres? Ruben Niebla, the extension finally comes through today too, so there's at least infrastructure news in San Diego.
Yeah, I think some of the biggest priorities for the Padres were getting the pitching coach and Mike Schultz extended, and they ended up getting both of those done at the GM meetings. But now, as far as free agency goes for the Padres, I talked to AJ Preller about this, and he did not close the door for a return for Jurickson Profar. He said he will have conversations with Scott Boras about Ha-Seong Kim. I left the GM meetings a little skeptical as far as how much exactly the Padres will spend this offseason. I think their payroll could go down. I also think they will explore a Jackson Merrill extension, as I've said before on this podcast. But I don't think they're going to be spending a whole lot of dollars or significant dollars. I think that's better phrasing. I don't think they'll be spending significant dollars in free agency unless something ends up changing this offseason.
What about Grecian Five's hot Blue Jays gossip? Anything coming from north of the border? Juan Soto, is he locked and loaded and ready to wear the maple leaf? What are we hearing here?
No, he's not locked and loaded and ready to wear the maple leaf. I don't believe he's on a flight to Toronto either. So, oh boy, that's gonna be a joke said many times this offseason. I think
this will not be the last time.
No, this will be the first of many. But I think the Blue Jays will spend. I think Juan Soto will be someone that they have plenty of conversations about and with. but I don't really have a good feel on where exactly they'll end up spending. I think they will try to compete this year. I think that was really signaled by them holding on to both Bo Bichette and Vlad Jr. at the deadline, as they viewed this year as a year to compete before those guys both become free agents. So they will try to compete. I just don't know exactly how they're going to invest their dollars at this point.
San Francisco Giants, as usual, in the comments as well, a couple different times. But George Corey mentions Adames. We've talked about it. And Ha-Seong Kim specifically. We know the Giants are going to be star hunting, but sometimes shooting for the moon, you land among the stars. And the Giants are probably going to be best served picking up a couple of names. I've even seen, don't rule out a Snell return and all that stuff. So Kim's been a hot Giants target forever. Anything you're hearing on their current thoughts and pursuits?
Yeah, I don't think a Snell return is out of the question by any means. It's going to be a pretty hefty contract, obviously. So we'll see if the Giants have the appetite to do something like that. But I remember I was talking to Buster Posey. It was in a scrum, and Jeff Passan ended up asking Posey, he's like, what does he value most when constructing a team? And he made it clear as he likes guys up the middle. So it'll be obviously second base, shortstop, and he'll also include center field in that. And to me, that immediately I thought of Ha-Seong Kim and also Willy Adames. And I think those two are very ideal targets for the Giants. I think they would make a whole lot of sense. We saw Mark Feinsand mention that the Giants are focused on Ha-Seong Kim. So we'll see there. Nothing is close to my knowledge. I mean, again, it's really early in the offseason, but I would look for the Giants to really kind of prioritize those positions, second base and shortstop. Obviously, trying to retain Blake Snell will be something that they try to do, but those are the things that I'm watching in San Francisco right now.
I wanted to bring up before we signed off too, all of this Phillies front office restructuring, just because we know it's such a pivotal offseason for the Phillies. They all are, but when you go World Series trip, NLCS exit, NLDS exit, you want to stop that backslide. You want to stop that negative momentum. They're losing Sam Fold for a little bit. He's going to get an MBA at Penn, at Wharton.
Yeah.
So now Preston Mattingly, the acting GM under Dombrowski, if you want to feel old, collectors of mid-2000s Bowman draft picks baseball cards. Luke Merton got a player development head role. I didn't know he was active in Major League Baseball. He won the Cape Cod League Home Run Derby I went to in 2007. Like, these are just people I think of as college baseball players who are now running the Phillies operation. So any thoughts on that shuffling, what it might mean? Obviously, Dombrowski's still the head honcho there.
Yeah, Dombrowski's still the head honcho there, and he was doing his thing. It's fun watching him kind of operate in either the media scrums or just walking through the lobby. He looks like such a normal dude. He looks like the cool grandpa or the cool uncle. And he's just a cool guy. And I think working for him would be an absolute blast. And Sam Fold, he was really commended for the stuff that he ended up doing in that front office there. But getting Preston Mattingly as their GM while Fold is doing his thing there, what is he getting again? His MBA?
Yeah, what? He's going to Wharton, and he's going to rejoin the team in some sort of elevated business role in 2026, according to the release.
Good for him. But as far as Preston Mattingly goes, I've talked to so many people who have worked with him over the years who absolutely have just raved about him. And they've always called him a future GM. And getting him there and replacing Fold with Preston Mattingly is really good work by Dave Dombrowski there. And I've long been a huge fan of the setup that the Phillies have in their front office. And also with their manager, I think Rob Thompson is awesome there. But the pairing of Dombrowski and Preston Mattingly really puts the Phillies in a position to succeed now going forward. And who knows? I don't know. You never know how much longer Dombrowski will go about this. But you would think that Mattingly would be a natural replacement for him as president of baseball operations at some point. But I don't think that's anywhere soon here. But that's just a good hire by the Phillies there.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And we'll update, obviously, as we learn more. Well, thanks, everyone, for showing up today. Great questions, great comments. If you want to get jump the line access, hit us in the Discord, join at the all-star level, get your questions in first. Also join at the Rumor Mill tier. There will be plenty of opportunity to talk to both Robert and myself and ask questions between shows. But until next time, we will be right back here. Monday is a holiday, so we will not be here Monday, but normal time, 3:30 on Tuesday, back again on Thursday. So subscribe if you're not subscribed. See some new faces today, obviously unfamiliar names in the comments. Plenty of viewers live. Thank you for joining us. But if you missed it live, get all the content that we put on this channel by mashing that subscribe button, liking the video, etc. Signing up in the comments, joining the channel. You get Discord access that way. Bottom line, and on all podcast platforms as well. In the aftermath, if you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can do that here as well. We ask if you rate and review us. It goes a long way. We're maintaining some good ratings right now. So if you do rate and review us, hit us with those 5 stars. Don't be stingy. Lower than that, and we're mad at you. But 5 is great. Robert Murray, thank you for joining me, and thank you for talking through so much on this show. These are my favorite shows of the year, when we get to really respond to the comments, touch on tons of topics, and this is what we got for the next couple of months.
It's going to be a lot of off-season conversation. I cannot wait because I absolutely love these shows. This is me in my element doing my thing, and I could not imagine being here with a better co-host than Adam Weinrib. There is a chance we will have a third co-host on the next episode of the Baseball Insiders. I don't know if Adam is aware of this yet. It might be breaking news to him, but I might be getting a puppy. We will see. I'm looking at him today, so we'll see. But it's a little golden retriever. So stay tuned for that. The Discord will have that scoop first, so that's another reason to join the Discord. But there is a chance that I have a puppy with me on the next show, so stay tuned for that. I appreciate everyone who tuned in. Joanne, our lovely producer, I appreciate you. Adam, we'll see you, what is it, Tuesday of next week?
Let's do it Tuesday. If there's a puppy, I'll bring Biscuit on the show. We'll have 4 co-hosts. I'll have to mute myself over and over again, but I do think it'll be worth it.
It would be very good content. I think that's what the content that the people crave. So let's make it happen.
Yeah, forget Roki Sasaki. We're going to bring some dogs on. And until Tuesday's show, thanks for joining us, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you then.
Thank you, everybody.